Morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the Morning. 15 minutes to change our lives. Continuing on in maamer Hachana from Gimmel Tammuz. This share is sponsored by Shirit Gold and family. Little nishmas Dovid ben Moshe haLevi all Shalom. The neshama should have an aliyah, have only good things, and the ultimate aliyah with Mashiach's coming. It's amazing. Okay. Let's get back into the maamer. Today we're up to Ois Hey. So we ended off with a question like this. There's a lot of things going on. We ended off with a question like this. Why? What's the dynamic between? We're saying there's two things we're sort of saying. One is we're saying that the Rebbe helps us have emunah, the be pneumius. Meaning that we should not just learn this stuff, but it should actually affect us. And that's on one hand. Like we see the Mordechai in his generation, and Moshe, and Mordechai, he gathered the Jewish people to stand against the oppression that was happening. And that's one thing that we say. And the other thing we say is and it's coming from the Fidik Rebbe, that it's through being crushed, like the story of Purim, that they were in such a tough situation that helped them. That's what caused it. So the question is, what's this dynamic? What's this play over here? Is it the being crushed in the time of Galus, like the time of Achashverosh, or is it the Mordechai giving them the ability? So that's what we're going to discuss in Ois Hey. We're going to discuss the different types of emunah and how they affect. And let's learn. Let's say it's very short. Shouldn't be too bad. Yeah. I say, how you do us, we can explain this idea of the connection between being crushed to the luminary, meaning the revelation that's an neshama that comes about through the hardship of Galus, and also this idea that's through the Raya Mehemna, the Moshe being of every generation, that brings them into Pnimius. So this to be understood according to what it said. How you do this? This is we believe in godliness, with a simple faith. The fact that a Jew believes is not something that needs to be proven. It's not a logical thing. It's not like we have I've yet to meet anyone that will come and say, I believe in Torah mitzvahs logically, because there's a logic behind it. It doesn't. They might convince themselves of logic, but really, when you go down to it and you sort of prod into it, you'll see that it's nothing to do with logic. It's who we are. So there's two reasons why this is the way it is. One is because our mazel sees, and because above there's a level of us that is above us, so to speak. It's called the mazel. The mazel looks, the mazel sees it. So the best marshal I can give for this. So the story goes this idea comes out from the Torah. It says about Daniel that he says that I saw. He was the one that saw, but there was a vision that he was the one that saw, but everyone else, they didn't see it, but they trembled. This is sort of that mazel. They didn't see it, the mazel saw it, and that's why they trembled. He was able to see it on a higher level, but they were on a low level, but still they were able to connect with them. So and this is sort of this type of emunah we're talking about. Then not necessarily I can explain, I can understand it. It's like the joke. Only by Judaism, you come to the people. You stand outside a shul after Yom Kippur, and you ask them, "Do you believe in God?" And you'll have a million different answers. You go to a church, you go, to a mosque, everyone's going to say the same answer. But by Yiddishkeit, we all know this. From our experiences growing up, is that there's always different levels. Everyone has their own opinion. But when you go into it deep down, it's a neshama. The neshama has it. And the neshama sees it, and that's how it works. So that's one level of emunah. Or example given, the mazlayach. We'll talk about it more. And this is called the mazlayach. Your mazel sees, meaning even though the way you act, and this is sort of very makir, because even the way you act will be very different, but you have a level within you that it's totally clear for you. The neshama that's above, that's hovering above you, which is re'iyah, which is seeing, which is above intellect. Meaning, when you see something, even though it doesn't make sense, you still saw it. And the best example I have for this is, I think it was last year or the year before, I was walking back from shul Friday night with my older son, Levik, and as we're walking, there's a truck that drives past that's picking up shopping carts. And he goes to me, Abba, why is there a Polish guy driving a truck on Shabbos? I said, can't be. I saw the guy in the truck, and I'm like, it can't be. So he goes, I saw him, I saw his payers, and I saw this guy. So I was trying to convince him that it's not possible. And he was trying to explain to me that you can't convince him it wasn't possible. I saw it. When you see something, it's above intellect. Intellect, you intellectualize it. And that's also why you can also change that thought. When you see something, it could be crazy. But if you actually saw it, you can come and say, listen, I know it doesn't make any sense. That's what I saw. And this is what was happening. He said, listen, I understand that logically it doesn't make sense, but this is what I saw. I can't argue with it. And this is that level of mazlei chazi. It's a deep level. It's deeper than our seichel. And this affects that the neshama has emunah. We believe in God. We have this understanding that God exists. Why? Because we essentially see it. That's why it's not logical. Because it's not like I convince myself of it. I believe because of course I believe. Why? If we go to the source, why? Because my muzzle sees it. Because it's clear to him, clear to that level of my soul. Just as it comes down, it comes a little bit harder to explain, harder to recognize it. That's what's going on. That's one reason. The second reason, right here, in another explanation, the sheresh ha'emunah hu me'etzem neshama. The source of the emunah comes from the essence of the neshama, which is even higher than this level. Which is higher than mazayich. Meaning, you can say like there's 3 levels. There's the intellect, which you can intellectualize and rationalize and figure out his godliness. Then there's a higher level, which is, I believe, not because I see, not I personally in my physicality see, but in my spirituality, I have a level of me that sees a likus, and therefore I believe in God. And you have a level higher than that, that it's even higher than this, which is that you're one with God, which is she'etzem haneshama mekasharet b'likus, that the essence of your neshama is connected with godliness. He's kasher, which is an essential connection. So I don't believe in God because it makes sense. I don't believe in God because there's a part of me that sees it. In the core of me, I believe in God because I'm one with God. Also, when we say belief, I believe in God, doesn't mean it doesn't make any sense to me. It's not that type of belief we're talking about. I believe, I understand it to be true. It don't depend on a reason. Not even seeing, which is above intellect. That's what we're saying. This second level is a much, much higher level. It's a level of godliness. We're one with God. And that's why I have emunah. Now, so these are these 2 levels. Now let's connect it to what's going on in our story about being crushed and about the Moshe. Moshe Zalman says emunah should be b'pnimius. This is the Moshe feeds the same emunah. That should be b'pnimius. That should really affect us. So what Moshe is doing, he's revealing that essence of the neshama, not the mazlei chazi, not the intellectual. Not that he's explaining to us intellectually why you should connect to God and believe in God. Not even saying that you have a mazal that sees God, but even on the deepest level, saying you're essentially one with God. You have a neshama, you have a maamer, you have this oneness with God. You're connected to Him, and it's just revealing that connection. Maamer Shalmali. So interesting. The kudus here is maamer. It's the same the kudus. Maamer Shalmali Meir. It's a stress. Very interesting. The point is, you're reaching the illuminary, the source, meaning that level within you that's connected. This is what the Rebbe is trying to do. That level within you is connected with Hashem. And now, being that it says in the pasuk, "Kasel Amar crush the luminary," so Mavar Amayim was the Fidik explaining in his maamer, the Kasel is Managolus. How do you reach this luminary? It's the reality of being crushed in Golus. Why is that? Because Ki Iker Hagilui, that's on Neshama Mar, the main revelation of the essence of Neshama, who in Mesiras Nefesh is expressed in Mesiras Nefesh. Our day-to-day lives, we don't reveal that Etzem Neshama, that clarity, but it's when something gets pushed, we get pushed within us, and suddenly you bring out that Etzem Neshama. Whether it is like the story that I told you about the guy that he jumped in to help us while we were doing Miftzayim. I didn't even know what Hanukkah was, but he knew it was a Yid, and he saw other Yid and needed some help, and he jumped in to help. That's a revelation. That's a neshama. But how? It was being crushed. The rest of the day, what is he doing? Nothing connection to Yiddishkeit at all. But suddenly he sees a Yid, and he feels he's feeling pushed and crushed. He jumps in. His essence neshama is revealed. He says, "Hey, I'm a Yid. What are you doing? Leave him alone. What do I need to do?" The main revelation is by Mesiras Nefesh. Sheikara is one of Golos, and one is that Mesiras Nefesh brought out. Obviously, it's in terms of Golos. So Kaimon, as will be explained later. Essentially, what we're saying is we still haven't answered the question, but we're bringing more information. The episode is still telling us if you don't understand the Vart, you have to understand more information. Because we're still stuck. We're still saying that there's different levels. The highest level is Etzem and Neshama, which is Kishura with Lakus, it's one with godliness. And that's revealed, essentially, the Rebbe helps us reveal it, and Galus. The Rebbe and Galus are the ones that come together to help us do this. So, yeah. So in the next parak, we're going to start to explain to understand this. Because as you can see, and this is sort of, one of the ways you know how you understand this properly, when you're learning something, you say to yourself, do I understand this? What's going on? What am I here? What am I left with? So here we can see clearly we're learning a point, but it's unfinished. Okay, so now that I've got to explain there's three levels, and what we're saying is that essentially that's the neshama, that the neshama is revealed, that's the neshama is revealed through kasus, and that's the Rebbe helps us. And now in Eis Vav, now he's going to start to explain. So let's understand this more, so we can actually tie this back in. And also, we're going to say, just to a spoiler alert, just to get to the answer a little bit, so we can think about this a little bit, is that we're going to say that, for example, the Shirit Gold's maamer, he was saying it in the time that you didn't have to have Mesiras Nefesh, and he was revealing this idea. He was helping him, giving the strength. That really, it seems like it's a bird that it's being crushed, and the revelation of Mesiras Nefesh, the revelation of that's in the neshama that's being revealed by being crushed, and the Rebbe helping give us that strength. But ultimately, if you want to tie it back to us, we don't live in a galus like they lived in the past. Our galus is not a galus of being crushed the same way. The being crushed that we have is that we look at life and we say it's unfair. It's our own making. We realize that it should be better than this. Why? Because ultimately, this is what the Rebbe is saying, ultimately, the crash that we have is an essential, from a deep level, that we're saying it shouldn't be this way. Moshe should be here already. Why is he not here? But this crash is not from Galus, meaning it's not outside of us. It's not an external situation. In Russia, in times of Haman, it was coming from what's going on in the world around them. That they had a decree against them. In Russia, it was the communists that were going against them and stopping them doing Torah mitzvahs. You didn't have it. It's like the famous story with Rabbi Weiss when he came out of Russia. I was actually reading this 2 days ago. I was at a wedding and I had this pamphlet, and it's from the book Samarkand. So Hillel Zaltzman, should live and be well. In his book, he writes that when he left Russia, he finally managed to get out of Samarkand and come to free. I think it was Eretz Yisrael. He was in the Shchunas Chabad in Yerushalayim, davening, the davening Rosh Hashanah Kippur, and he said, and he was davening and he cried. And he said, I didn't cry so much because of the davening, as much as because I missed to be back with the Chevra in Samarkand. So when I first read that, it blew me away. He was in Galus. It was literally Galus. It was a struggle to turn, a struggle to daven with a minion, a struggle to lengthen the Torah. Everything was a struggle. And he said he missed it. Why did he miss it? And then the story goes, 2 years later, he finally meets Rabbi Weiss, which they were friends. And Rabbi Weiss asked him, he goes, no, Hilke, how is it? How's the Avodah going back, in the free countries? So he goes, I miss it. So Rabbi Weiss said, you're surprised? He goes, my favorite years were in prison. And you're like, what is going on? What? The point is, and this is a whole thing we need to get into. But the point is that when you have all these situations that are forcing you, pushing you, it's not real. It's not the true true level of etzem neshama is being revealed. Something outside of it's causing. It's nice and it's fun. And that's why they said, I miss it. I think he misses being in jail. He doesn't like being in jail. But what the being crushed produced within him was a connection to Hashem that was easy, it was good. What we have now is none of that. It's all us. We have no one pushing you. We're no crushed from anything. It's just our own making. And that is a challenge and a half. And when we're able to produce that and bring it out within ourselves, then that's the gold. That's the ultimate gold. And we'll see this as the maamer goes along. We'll discuss it a little more and get into the details and really understand this. And the job is to think about it, to really connect with it and grapple with it and recognize within ourselves and how we see this in ourselves and how we can use that as a catalyst to help us push ourselves. Yeah, to be continued. Have a great Shabbos, everyone. Another example of the difference between the Mazloi Chazi versus the Etzem Neshama is a famous story I talked about a few times already, that there was a guy, a Mitzrayim, and he met a guy, and he was putting tefillin on him, and the guy goes, "There's putting tefillin on." He said, "I got to tell you a crazy story." He was in the Amazon rainforest, and he was with his friend, two Israelis, and at a certain point, an anaconda started wrapping itself around his friend. So that's bad news. And what happens? The anaconda starts wrapping it around. And basically what it does is it wraps itself around you, and every time you take in a breath, it closes you, so it stops your airways, and just die. You run out of breath. And it's powerful, it's strong, and you can't do anything about it. And they're freaking out, and it's too powerful for them to do anything about it. And it's like crazy. And at some point, his friend, he realizes he's about to die. So he screams out. And he wasn't religious at all. He screams out, Shema Yisrael Hashem Eloheinu Echad. And he screams it out, and the snake stops, and it wraps itself back off him, and it goes away. And they get blown away. They're blown away. So the Lubavitcher putting on tefillin on the guy, he says, so what happened in the end? So he goes, my friend, he became from. He said, if he lives now, whatever he lives in a from community in Eretz Yisrael, and he goes, 1 second, what happened to you? Why didn't you become from? So he said, it didn't happen to me. So you could say that the guy that didn't become from was Mazloi Chazi. He saw it. It's real. God is real, but it doesn't have that effect on him. Whereas the other guy, he realized the etzem connection that he had with the Likus, as one with Hashem, and that was revealed through this Mesiras Nefesh, through this being literally Moshe Nefesh. He was about to die, and he dived into Hashem. That revealed within him on a very clear level this etzem neshama, and that got him. Not going to such an it was a pretty heavy experience enough, got him to change his ways. But the other guy, he saw it. Mazloi Chazi doesn't mean anything changed. And so we have to think about these things. How do we see this in our lives?